Hey there, my name is Christy Johnson Sadler, and I'm the Paranormal Hypnotist. I teach people how to connect with dimensional energies and explore hidden knowledge and memories to create positive change in their life.
And I'm Alex, the not-so-important co-host and half-hearted audio engineer with an eager ear for the paranormal. Do you like listening to scary stories around the campfire? Or trading tales of intrigue around the water cooler?
Maybe watching Leonard Nimoy on In Search Of, or Robert Stack on Unsolved Mysteries.
Have you ever stayed up till 4 a.m., chain-smoking cigarettes, pounding energy drinks and Cheetos, researching the underhanded imperialist satanic reptilian plot housed in the underground Masonic-funded temples, hell-bent on suppressing the existence of Bigfoot while keeping the Ark of the Covenant at the bottom of the Oak Island money pit in order to continue the status quo of the riot-inducing question of which way to face a toilet paper roll?
Wow. All that from around a campfire, huh? I think you need some new hobbies.
Don't tell me what I need. All I need is to get into Camp David, then find out who has the key passes to the Dolce Bay.
He'll be back. Catch us every week on the Supernatural Tendencies Podcast, where we'll cover oddities, conspiracies, and things that go bump in the night. See you soon. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We wanted to take a few minutes and introduce ourselves and tell you a little bit about us, the goals of our podcast, and what you can expect when you tune in.
Most certainly. First off, my name is Alex, and the first thing I want to say before this gets too prevalent is this is a mother-son project here. I'm sitting here with my mother, Christy. And we just, like she had just said, we wanted to kind of go through, just kind of introduce ourselves a little bit, let you know that we are professionals and just nearly nothing. So we wanted to kind of set that precedence first. So we want to get started in this. So if you'd introduce yourself, Mother.
Well, hi everybody, and my name is Christy Johnson Sadler, and I'm also known as the Paranormal Hypnotist. And, I do teach people how to own their paranormal and universal power, and also to explore their spiritual and dimensional self. And I am a certified hypnotist. I'm also a psychic medium, and I'm also a paranormal and spiritual coach. And I work with people both inside of my private group. I have a private group on Facebook, the Paranormal Academy. So if you're needing help in any of those areas, be sure to join. But that's a little bit about me. I'm married. I obviously have children. I'm a grandma. And something a lot of people may not know is that I'm also a cancer survivor. So also shout out to all the cancer survivors out there.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to hit this back here. The glaring thing in your introduction there is your paranormal hypnotist title.
Absolutely.
Can you just very briefly kind of explain in terms that maybe someone who's not aware of the terminology, can you explain what you do and how that could affect our listeners?
Well, sure. And that really too, I should have inserted this. But it's also my reason for both my interest in the paranormal and the extraterrestrial. But it's also why I became what I term a paranormal hypnotist. I've had paranormal and extraterrestrial experiences since childhood. And I never had, even growing up and even into, my adult years. And, I'm almost 50 years old now. I never felt that there was a place for people who are having these experiences to really turn to for help, or even just someone to listen and be there to hear your story. So that's really why I went into all that, and that's why I do what I do now.
Now, what do you do exactly is my question.
I help people who are having paranormal activity to put a stop to those experiences, because you don't have to be a paranormal punching bag. And I also help people who are having extraterrestrial visitations, extraterrestrial contact, to explore those experiences and maybe find out why those experiences are happening. And I also am happy to teach people how to develop your natural psychic abilities and to explore all of the information and knowledge that comes from tapping into your unconscious memories and even tapping into your universal power using astral projection and things of that nature.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. I know sometimes when you start speaking to me in a lot of the terms that I may not even understand.
My hypnosis jargon.
Yep, and that's no offense to anybody who is aware of those terms. But sometimes one could get lost. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that especially with all the TV shows on now, how many TV shows are there now with that revolve around hauntings and the paranormal, and they all seem to, in my opinion, kind of set the tone that if you're having these experiences, that your only course of action is really to call in a psychic or a shaman or some type of spiritual healer to eliminate the problem or help you deal with it. And by all means, certainly, I'm not saying that any of these methods won't work. But what I'm saying is that every person has the ability to control whatever energies are around them. So instead of giving your power away to people like that, you absolutely have the power to control those energies on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little bit of work. It takes some focus, but it's absolutely possible.
Understood. Okay. Thank you for that. My name is Alex. Of course, you have just heard my mother speaking. There's nothing overly fascinating about me, other than the fact that, I just wanted to be involved in this. So I do listen to a lot of podcasts regularly. I have a job that allows me to drive and do deliveries for over 40 hours a week. So I tend to spend most of my time listening to a lot of different podcasts. A lot of Supernatural, although I'm not just a Supernatural nerd. I do other things as well. But regardless, I find myself continually listening to just different podcasts from different people, area, regions. And I just like hearing about it. Even if it's the same information. I mean, I'll listen to the same topic across 6 different episodes of the podcast, and I just can't get enough of it. So I wanted to help contribute to that. I know that there may be a pretty large paranormal community in our area, and I know personally I wanted to get involved, maybe help contribute with our own little community of people who could share their experiences as well. So that's it about me. So I'm pretty boring. I got nothing better than that.
He really is pretty boring. I'm
pretty boring.
Sorry.
So next, we wanted to kind of give an explanation of some of our goals of this podcast, and these are goals on the onset. These are not set in stone, and they could fluctuate, possibly from week to week. So our first one here is we wanted to tell you that we wanted to bring this podcast to you as entertainment because we know that's what we like. Topics that we like, areas of study that we like. And we wanted to try to bring it to you on a weekly basis. Now, again, we both do lots of work outside of this podcast itself, so it may be pushed to maybe every 2 weeks. We kind of toyed around with the idea of maybe seasons and then taking the breaks in between the seasons to maybe produce more content. We're not totally sure at this point, but we are sure that we want to give you some regularity in the content that's being distributed. We wanted to also specify that we wanted to give you these stories that you may or may not have heard of. So even if we do cover things that many people have heard of, the Roswell incident, something like that. We also wanted to cover even the little things. I know we have a couple lined up here that you may or may not have heard of. And we just wanted to bring that as something more for you to listen to. Because again, that's what we like to hear as well.
Yes. And also, it's really important to us to build up a community that is going to be filled, with like-minded individuals, people who are into the paranormal, who are into the extraterrestrial. We talked about cryptids also. That's a huge area of interest for us.
Yep. And having a community that is active. We eventually toyed around with the idea of having some call-ins with some stories, just some sharing. Heck, if you want to request an idea for a show, or suggest some topics, I guess would be a better phrasing for that, for us to cover in the future. We want to incorporate everybody, because in a way, we do a lot of the back end work. We do a lot of the editing. But ultimately, I would love to have to convey that feeling that it is our show, everybody's show, not just Alex and Christy's show.
Exactly. And, know that we are continually going to be coming up with new ideas for content outside of the tons of options that you do have when choosing a paranormal podcast to listen to. And if there are ever any ideas that you belonging to our community, any ideas or for topics that you may have, don't ever hesitate to let us know, because we would absolutely love to hear what you think and hear your ideas, to be able to feature those on upcoming shows.
Yes, most certainly. And we do have some different ideas from some of the standard formats I kind of think about in my head. We do have some what I think are great ideas that I haven't heard before, haven't seen done before. Of course, between the ideas that you have in your head and how those translate to in practice, could be totally different. But that kind of brings us to the possible income for this show. We want to make it clear, at least in this onset, that we do not want to gain anything personal from this show, other than just being self-sufficient in the show itself. For example, we may throw up a Patreon. We may have some ad space. All of those contributing factors will not be to our personal benefit, other than making more content, maybe upgrading the equipment that we have for the podcast, just making it better overall. So we wanted to, like I said, make that clear on the onset. This is not going to be a job for us, most likely. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But we do want to have it maybe fund some things for this show, that in my mind I haven't seen just yet. I don't want to talk about it just now.
Yeah, but that would be really awesome. If we were to be able to travel around to some of these paranormal locations, and maybe even broadcast live, do something where we broadcast live from there. So that would be something exciting for the future that we could shoot for. And
especially right now, we have this kind of mini recording setup, but it is not optimal to do like on the road stuff. So having the equipment, for example, to do on the road stuff would be an extra expense. We do have families, so every little bit helps for this, ideas wise or monetarily. So we don't want to force that on anybody, but the option is there, because if the community gets involved, the show's only going to get better.
Absolutely.
That's how I see it. So.
And we most definitely appreciate your support.
Most certainly. We kind of want to go over what you can expect also when you tune in every week. We wanted to bring this up because of the whole idea of how a podcast is formatted, and this is totally up to the creators. Unfortunately, sometimes some people are more creative than others, and we are not production experts, so we kind of have a loose idea on how we wanted to format it starting off. But constructive criticism is more than welcome.
Definitely.
So if we find some ideas on how to change the actual setup, what have you, even down to, right now we're in our podcast studio. It needs a little bit of work to soundproof it. So even right now we may be getting some echo. I'll be able to tell you more about that when I go in and edit it, and probably kick myself for not moving this there or that there. But like I said, constructive criticism would be fantastic. We will be posting this to YouTube, the various other social media platforms, maybe the wow, I'm brain farting here. All the other podcast apps, Stitcher, Podbean, stuff like that, that will be in the works. So I'm not quite sure how fast those are going to be going. I know that you had planned on immediately uploading this to YouTube, but for those other platforms, there is like a
there is a little bit of a waiting period. They generally want you to have 4 or 5 episodes, to post when you initially post.
Well, that's what they suggest. That's not required, but regardless, there is like an acceptance time for it.
Correct.
So by the time you all hear this, we may have 4 or 5 episodes kind of up by the time you get to hear this in a pure audio form. So things might maybe change by the time you actually hear this. So like I said, we know we're going to be putting this up on the internet for you to hear, and not just begging internet trolls just to just to get all over
the
this.
Trolls are here.
And that's fine. I got thick skin on this.
Oh, exactly.
And I think it makes it better that I'm not professional, because if I were professional about it, I might take it a little more to heart. But then I got that fallback of, I'm not professional.
Well, there are always the keyboard commandos out there that like to criticize everything, but that's not really what's important. The important thing is, getting this knowledge out there. And, as we said before, some of these stories you may have heard of, you may not have heard of. But there are quite a few people out there who are just, maybe for whatever reason, getting into, the paranormal podcast and that type of thing. And so this may be all new to them. So...
A car just went by.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to edit that out. So we wanted this first episode, again, just a brief overview. So I probably won't even edit that out. It was kind of like a loosey-goosey form on it. I just wanted to kind of discuss with you, to them, on kind of what to expect. So
you're getting it live here, people.
That's I'm not going to stress out about that for a quick, what was it? Where are we at now? Almost 15-minute introductory episode. So for most of our content, I will be editing those kind of things out. But for, like I said, I need to soundproof this room.
It'll be one of those things that every episode will get better and better. And
yep, and we'll learn much better how these microphones.
Exactly.
Like, case in point, this is our first official recording with this new microphone I got here. So we will be switching out different equipment pieces, different stuff like that. So hopefully, like you said, it will get better and better. And
we do appreciate all of you sticking around and bearing with us while we go through this experimental phase.
Well, yep, that's it. Yep. All right, that's all I had to say for this first episode. So we can move on to our next releases. I believe our first release is going to be on Star Jelly.
Star Jelly.
So if you're interested in Star Jelly, please tune in, and then we will go from there.
And don't forget, if you are a fan of Facebook, jump on over and give our page a like and a follow at the Supernatural Tendencies Podcast. And like, we said earlier, if you have suggestions, if you have constructive criticism, or even if you just want to say hi, we would love to hear from you. So don't hesitate to post.
Of course. All right. Thank you. Bye.
What do you get when you mix together a religious film producer and a strange tale based on the experience of 5 Philadelphia policemen?
You end up with the 1958 movie The Blob, and while it catapulted a young Steve McQueen into stardom, it also ignited a new movie craze, sci-fi.
But how much of the movie is fact and how much is fiction? And what's the story that gave birth to this iconic classic?
In this episode, we'll separate the truth from the Hollywood screenplay and expose a mysterious event that left Philly's finest at a loss for an explanation.
Be sure to stay tuned till the end, where we'll give our personal opinions on the validity of this paranormal mystery.
So thank you for joining us on this installment of the Supernatural Tendencies Podcast. Episode 1, Star Jelly. Our story begins innocently enough, with a meteorite crashing down just outside of a small community in rural Pennsylvania. But this is no ordinary meteorite. Inside is a red, gelatinous, alien organism that devours everything it comes into contact with, including the residents of small-town USA.
The year is 1957, and Christian filmmaker Jack H. Harris desperately needs a hit. As a producer of nearly 250 religious films, his independent movie company is in danger of going belly up. Filmed in Pennsylvania at a cost of a mere $110,000, it was an instant success and launched the career of a 27-year-old Steve McQueen. A young Alex Karras former Detroit Lion player and actor on the 1980s sitcom Webster, is also debuting.
Originally titled The Molten Meteor, the plot revolves around the discovery of a highly corrosive extraterrestrial goo with a taste for human blood. And after some trial and error, the brave townspeople become aware that freezing is the only way to exterminate it, and seemingly put an end to its reign of B-rated terror.
Not really, though, because thanks to a few sequels and an even worse remake, the Blob's legacy lived on years past its original prime. But how much of this story is for the cameras, and is any of it true? You might be surprised to hear the answer.
Going back 7 years earlier, in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, two veteran police officers, Joe Keenan and John Collins, witnessed seeing a large, sparkly mass that fell from the sky. Upon closer inspection, they described the unusual mass as purple in color and resembling jelly. They remarked that it was approximately 6 feet in diameter and roughly a foot high off the ground.
Now, as if this isn't strange enough, the officers noted that it also pulsated. So grabbing their flashlights and shining some light on the situation, it became apparent that the mysterious substance was also glowing, as if it were made up of a bioluminescent material.
So understandably, the men were taken aback by what they were seeing, and unable to come up with an explanation for what this mass might possibly be. Not taking any chances, the two radioed in, and were soon joined by 2 additional officers, who also verified the original men's claims. This was not something any one of them could explain.
After a quick game of straws, Sergeant Joe Cook became the chosen officer to attempt to touch and pick up the pulsating substance. But after scooping up a handful, the jelly reportedly broke apart, leaving only bits and pieces of the mass behind in his hand. And these pieces astonishingly disappeared within just a few seconds, leaving behind an invisible film in its place.
Unfortunately, the entire mass disappeared roughly 30 minutes afterward, making it impossible for any further examination. But one thing all 4 men agreed on was that this blob was in fact a living organism. From where remained a complete mystery.
Now, even though the FBI was called in to investigate, with no evidence remaining, there wasn't really a whole lot for them to go on. Meanwhile, the Air Force wanted nothing to do with the story. So the whole event quickly disappeared into paranormal history, until 1958, when a remarkably similar tale hit box offices across the United States. Only this time, the mysterious substance came with a carnivorous appetite and a bad attitude in tow.
Now, was the movie actually based on the experiences shared by these 4 men in blue? Or was it the brainchild of a man trying to scare hordes of 1950s teenagers, using something other than the typical men in plastic suits that dominated the screen during that time? The truth may never be known, since Harris never said for certain where his inspiration came from.
But one thing is for sure. Many researchers have offered supposed explanations for the jelly-like substance the officers encountered that night, but none can definitively name its origin. The popular theory is that the mysterious mass was actually a common phenomenon known as star jelly.
Star jelly is a white or light gray substance that, much like as described in the movie, reportedly falls from the sky and may or may not be connected with meteor showers. The official answer seems to be up for constant debate, but accounts describing this strange occurrence date back to the 14th century, where Josh Gaddiston wrote of it being used for treatment of abscesses. It was even mentioned by Sir Walter Scott in his 1825 book, The Talisman.
Now, what this gelatinous material is seems to be a hot topic for debate, or fistfights, or both, because explanations range from space dust and goo to frog vomit, and even that it has alien origins.
Beginning in 1979, researchers who examined residue left behind after a reported incident concluded that it was made up of space residue that collected in the Earth's clouds. This seems highly unlikely due to the fact that this material would burn up upon entering our atmosphere, and the theory of it being related to some type of mass amphibian vomiting spree has been shot down due to no DNA being present in any of the tests conducted.
So is it possible that what the 4 officers encountered that night came from extraterrestrial beginnings?
It's important to note that there have been other recorded reports of star jelly in history, such as November 11th, 1846, in Lowville, New York. Residents reported a luminescent object that fell from the sky that was nearly 4 foot in diameter. The object left behind a jelly-like substance with a bad odor, which disappeared shortly after being discovered, as covered in an article in Scientific American. One of the most famous reports on August 11, 1979, was that of Sybil Christian of Frisco, Texas, who reportedly found a series of purple-colored blobs of goo on her front yard after a meteor shower. The gelatinous material contained small flecks of metal, and authorities had no explanation as to its source. The press caught wind of the story, and it became a nationwide sensation. Could the metal have been lead? And could it have possibly been from an extraterrestrial craft?
An investigation done by reporters and the assistant director of the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History noticed that a battery reprocessing facility was in the nearby area of Miss Christian's property. The processing there resulted in a purplish byproduct being produced, which led to the theory that the blobs of the mysterious goo were due to this reason. However, samples taken from the plant were of a solid nature, whereas Miss Christian's were gelatinous.
Over several days in 1994, the town of Oakville, Washington was besieged by a mysterious gelatinous rain. The story was featured in the magazine National Geographic and the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries, and was even the topic of an alleged conspiracy theory. An interview with microbiologist Mike McDowell claims to have tested the unknown substance, determined that it was a matrix-containing bacteria that would cause illness to anyone who touched it. He also claims that his sample mysteriously went missing, and when he inquired to his supervisors on its whereabouts, he was told not to ask, leading him to believe that the substance was man-made for a specific purpose. He believed that Oakville, Washington, was being used as a government test site. A similar incident also occurred in Everett, Washington in 1997.
Reports of this strange gelatinous goo have been reported in Australia, Canada, Scotland, and England. And while many matched up with known meteors falling to Earth, some appear to have no known cause. As to date, no tests concluded have been able to exactly identify what the mysterious substance is, much less where it comes from, giving weight to the theory that it may in fact be extraterrestrial in origin.
Put the official pause that he usually does. Maybe in fact extraterrestrial in origin. Yeah.
I'm gonna start talking like, what's that one guy on Ancient Aliens? I call him Little Bill Shatner. It was like,
oh yeah,
there was a hole in the middle of the earth. Every time I hear him, I'm just like, he's gonna say one sentence, gonna take 10, 15 freaking minutes.
Lord,
I got time to pee and get a pop.
Anyway,
one sentence.
Anyway, so we're doing the discussion portion of today's topic, which is star jelly. And let me just start out by saying, this is the most, how do I even word it? Confusing thing to research yet. Now, granted, this is our first official topic that we've done, but I've spent hours doing little bits of research on this, okay? So you tend to dive into the rabbit hole of YouTube, which has now become a cliche statement at this point in time. But you notice that there aren't many star jelly videos on YouTube about this. And the few that I've found of people actually finding quote-unquote star jelly is literally people walking around their yards and they'll go, oh, what is that?
It's star jelly.
What is that? There's one, if you guys get time, there's one you can look up, and I can't remember the link to it. If I find it later, I'll post it. But apparently this gentleman walks his yard every Saturday morning, which, believe me, I don't completely understand.
Well, you never know when, a case of star jelly could happen.
Apparently this is routine for him. He just walks around his yard every Saturday morning and just looks at things, and he happens to find this goo. And to me, it looked like if you could just coagulate Vaseline. That's what it kind of looked like. And so his wife's out there, and she's like looking at it like, and my first thought is I'm not going to touch it. I'm not leaning over and touching it. And maybe that's the fundamental difference, because this video itself kind of looked like it was not rural. It was definitely like Washington or Oregon. So not like metropolitan area, but walking around the cities that I've walked around in my life. So Detroit, Boston, Charleston, South Carolina. I don't tend to find things just goo laying on the ground and go, wonder what that feels like.
So what you're saying is you just don't generally walk up to trees and things of that nature and just, randomly check for star jelly. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm just saying that there's a goo on the ground. If you're walking on the sidewalk, are you just going to reach down and pick up this jelly?
Well, me personally, no, I'm not going to. No.
It just looks kind of weird.
But like I'll get a stick, I'll scrape it in like a baby food jar or something.
Have you personally done that?
Well, no, but I'm just saying if I would. If I should happen upon what I think might possibly be star jelly.
So before this research, that you may not have known much about star jelly before doing.
Wouldn't have went near it. Nope.
So that's my first thought.
Honestly, I would probably think like a dog yacked it up or something.
You know what?
I mean, yeah.
And even further than that, this lady literally like is looking around for possible solutions as to what this is. And at some point, she's like out of ideas on a ground level, and she like points the camera upward, and lo and behold, there's a hawk like circling overhead. And I swear to you, she goes, "Oh, maybe it's from the hawk."
What?
I'm not a studier of animals. And so I don't know what secretes from hawks, but I guess she's just trying to grasp at straws. And finally, she goes, "Maybe it's star jelly." So she just reaches down and grabs it, and it kind of like apart.
Wait a minute, what did it do?
So anyway, we wanted to kind of go over some extra stuff that we found because in the narration, there were some things that I know I didn't technically agree with, but regardless. There are some explanations to some of these cases. Can you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think I think that there might be. Well, I don't want to say I think that there might be. I think that star jelly is in fact a legitimate probably one contributing to one of these possible sources. But I do think that some of the other cases, like the story with Miss Christian. Cases like that are really more unexplained. Especially when you have that science, it gives the definition of star jelly as being white or light gray in color. And, as with that case, you have it in other cases, you have it being reportedly purple in color. So, I think these could possibly be two different things.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you if you actually read the possible explanation for that case in particular.
I did with the reprocessing, the battery reprocessing plant, and that to me that just still doesn't definitively say that it was from that plant.
I think it was though. It wasn't a caustic soda with.
That would give the purplish color. That would explain that. But it was two different types of an end result. Mrs. Christian's... Is it Christian or Christian's son? I think
I read Christian.
We've had a problem with that like this whole time with these notes and everything.
With the variation in last names on reported last names?
Yeah. But, like, the material that she found, the goo that she found... was gelatinous, whereas when they, ran these tests and everything, the end result of the product that they came up with, the byproduct of it, was not gelatinous. So, they even tried to replicate this, trying to find an answer for it, and found out that, okay, these two materials, they don't match. So, I don't know. I think that these may be two separate things. Or could they be things that are related but different? You know what I mean?
That's confusing.
Well, a little bit, but I don't know.
If we talk in enough circles, then we sound like we have validation.
And I was thinking about what you said too about, the what you were watching. Was it something you were watching or listening to?
Oh, on YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah, watching,
okay,
yeah.
It was you were watching it.
Mm-hmm.
About how, would I if I found something like that, would I go over and touch it, or what would my reaction be? And it just something that I neglected to put earlier in the notes, but going back to 1600 years ago in China, there was an alchemist and a hermit that his name was Hung Ji, who was known to eat it frequently. And they even, and it's, even still used today for making bird's nest soup. this type of algae. So, and it wasn't until 2008 when health concerns about using it and eating it, really came into light after some restaurants were selling it in Peru. So, I don't, apparently it's not toxic.
Well, I think that's,
or at least that kind wasn't.
Yeah, I think to lump all these different things into one is where you could possibly get in trouble, because we do
that's kind of what I'm saying.
We do have a few other ideas on what at least some of these cases may be. The one that I had seen, and you kept confusing me in your notes because it's not what you had put initially. What I had read it was the frog spawn, and when they had laid it, when frogs lay it in the water, each kind of individual egg is kind of surrounded by this gelatinous thing, and of course, predatory birds would kind of come along and eat it. And there have been cases rather, of the birds kind of just overeating, kind of like what I do a lot, just overeat it, and then they will kind of like puke it all up at a different point, like somewhere on the land maybe or something like that, and then people kind of find it. So
you do that a lot.
I overeat. I don't eat frog spawn. Yeah.
And the show took a gross turn right about there.
But then I just call it making room. And then I just kind of come back for seconds. So I think of what I had read, that magpies and herons have been seen doing this exact thing. So I think that a lot of these could be attributed to that, because I'm just being fair. There's another thing that I found that I had actually told you about later on that you hadn't heard of before either, and I'm not going to claim any type of intelligence regarding this. I simply found it called is it Gnostic or Gnostic commune? And from what I read, it was like a form of algae that can like lay dormant for like thousands of years. Some people will say it's possibly like ancient cells that kind of like become revitalized with rain. Now, my only problem with that is, though, is like, how many times can it rain in one area before it actually starts blooming?
Exactly.
And like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but most of the places that these are found, aside from maybe Texas, and I think maybe Eastern Texas has a little bit more rainfall than Western Texas. But all the other places that we generally have talked about, Scotland, England, this particularly, actually, this information comes from an Irish Times article, from which, in my mind, Ireland tends to rain a lot. So if you have a random goo kind of appear, and it's this explanation, how many times has it rained before that there was no goo? So what in the rain, is it like a chemical makeup in the rain? What kind of conditions make this Gnostic commune bloom now or not now, 100 years ago, not 100 years ago? So that's the only thing that kind of confused me with that, I guess, as an explanation as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and I can buy that to some degree, but on both of those accounts, you have where they've done tests, they've done studies on this mysterious substance, and how many times have they not been able to show that there was no DNA present. Now, whether if you're talking, whether it's frog eggs, or you're talking that birds had vomited it up, or even if you're talking about some form of ancient algae, any one of those three, you're still going to have DNA evidence. And they've studied this, and they know that there is in fact no DNA present.
Mm-hmm. It's in some of these cases, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the ones that they've actually been able to collect specimens before they have disappeared. So
we just want to clarify that of the large collection of star jelly that you may find walking around, first we need to go through all these other possible explanations that have been proven. Correct. So whether it be the frog spawn, possible Gnostic communes, slime molds, I believe, was another one.
Correct.
But once we get through this, as with a lot of things in the supernatural community, once you sift through and actually have all these answers for the for sure ones, there are some left that are odd, and that's what you're saying.
Yes, definitely. I think there's just you examine the evidence, and for the cases where they have been able to collect the goo, with having no DNA present, you kind of got to search on those, because basically everything, living is going to have some type of DNA. So what could this possibly be that would have no DNA?
Mm-hmm.
You have to separate the cases, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I did not really find though, and I was kind of excited for this, are the theories of what it may be. I didn't find anything too crazy. Maybe I have a certain baseline level of crazy myself, so like I need to reach that first, and I didn't reach it here. I mean, unless you can kind of provide me with some of those explanations that are kooky and crazy.
No, I couldn't really find any either. And I don't think there's really been too much study actually done on it, and I'm kind of getting the feeling that a lot of these cases probably go unreported. People may be passing it off or just maybe not even noticing it. Maybe it happens more often than we think, and just no one notices it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, how many people actually, go out into their yard or, take a stroll around the neighborhood just to see if there's any random star jelly on the trees or, what have you.
Yeah, that's very true too. I mean, but that could be the case for anything. I mean, if Sasquatch is really alive and walking around, I mean, the times that people see him are a fraction of the time that he's actually existing.
Well,
so I mean,
we're going to talk about Bigfoot. I mean, that's a whole nother story, and I'll talk about Bigfoot all day long because Bigfoot is real.
Yeah, you're certifying that now.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
When they finally figure it out, and he's finally like, hey, I'm going to be like, I told you guys.
Obviously, that's a topic for another show.
Obviously.
A very long topic.
Very long topic.
Or very short, depending on what you believe. The other thing I wanted to come up with here, or bring up here, is apparently there have been stories of this substance dating back to the 14th century, and with that kind of history of reporting or experience with such, there comes a lot of extra names. So not just star jelly, but I've also found star snot.
Ew.
And witch's butter.
Well, witch's butter is better than star snot.
Witch's butter.
Like, Mom, I found some star snot out in the yard.
Like when I first picture witch's butter, is like when you take like the margarine out of the wrapper, and you kind of like roll it around on the ground for a while, and then see what it picks up. And
that's
to me,
just
that
gross.
that kind of explains to me like what witch's butter may look like in my mind.
I just had that mental picture. You probably don't remember this, but back I think it was in the 70s. They had I think it was Imperial margarine. I think I can't remember for sure. And they had these commercials on TV where like they'd go to open the butter and it would be like, oh no, it was Parquet. So it was like Parquet. I could just see that. Open it. Witch's butter. Uh-oh. Not going to eat any of that. I don't want that on my toast.
Like there's somehow like a small eyeball from a creature in it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sorry for the witches out there.
I'll see, we've ruined butter for everybody now.
Anyway, so I don't know unless you had anything else to add.
Not really though. But so based on these on all this information, what do you think? Do you think that okay, there's a logical explanation for it? It's something to do with science. It's something of that nature, or do you think that there's could be more of an extraterrestrial situation going on here?
I gotta be honest with you. With this one, I don't feel, and this is just me, I guess, I don't feel that there is, and I think. To sum that idea up, I think someone said it great. Again, another one of those mysterious YouTube videos that I watched. I can't really remember what it's called right now. Again, if I find it again, I'll try to post a link on one of our show notes or something like that. But the person, it was a really well done video, and you could totally tell that it was sponsored by somebody like How Stuff Works or something like that. It wasn't How Stuff Works, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And
he was just kind of going through and talking about, for the most part, kind of like a general idea. And he was explaining how the idea of it, coming from meteorites falling, simply was the fact that people seen, meteorites falling or comets falling, and then they would walk over the next hill and then maybe find star jelly.
Yeah.
So he had essentially said that like it was like a 1+1 = 2 and a kind of like a primitive mindset kind of thing. And I got to agree with him that just because you see a meteor falling, you find something on the ground, doesn't mean that it came from the meteor.
True.
So I rarely like to speak in infinites, but if I'm going to put an illogical number percentage to it, if 85 to 90% are clearly identifiable as any one of these other things that we have discussed, leaving the small portion unexplained, for me it's a reach to say that it fell from a meteor.
Yeah.
Other than that, I will relent in saying that I have no idea. I have no real opinion on the next 10 to 15%. But to say that using the medieval logic of we saw a meteor,
Yeah.
It was going this direction, we followed it, we found this, when in reality, I mean, the meteor may look like it fell on the other side of the hill, but it could be on the next hemisphere technically. So,
True. Yeah, true. For me, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this one because I do think that I'm trying to think exactly how I want to say this. It does seem odd. I mean, as you said, you can chalk probably the majority of it up to these natural occurrences. But for those 10, 15%, whatever it is, I'm not going to give exact figures. I don't know what those are. But in those cases where you can directly attribute them to, okay, regardless of if it's over that hill or, whatever, if you have a meteorite that came falling down and then you have a report of, star jelly or a mysterious substance being found, that's kind of odd. So this is kind of what I meant in the beginning, like when I said, maybe these are two different things or maybe two similar things that are just coming from different sources. I don't know. But it does seem like in a lot of these cases that you have a meteorite known to have fallen in that general area, and then you have the reports of star jelly being found, within that area.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that really throws me, though, is the report of that the policeman gave on how they knew without a doubt, or they claimed that without a doubt, whatever it was that they saw was a living organism. So, granted, we know more scientifically now than we did even just in the 50s, when these officers had their experience. So was it, how like if you took, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm, making fun of the officers or anything like that. But how like if you're doing dishes and you squirt your dish soap into the dishwater and the bubbles move, do you think it could have been a situation like that where they are seeing some type of foreign movement, which then makes them think, oh, hey, this must be a living organism? Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know, that part of it really kind of throws me. But barring that, and I don't have an explanation for what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the same thing that we can contribute to frog eggs or bird vomit or ancient algae? I don't know. I don't know.
Kind of in the same boat then.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, having something that does have kind of a storied past as one of these explanations, and I kind of lump it in with the raining of different objects. So like the raining of fish. There's been a couple of times, or raining. I think there was one crazy one of like meat rained from Kentucky, and sometime in Kentucky, and this was quite a while ago if I'm remembering right. And a lot of those have just easy explanations. Something had happened, and maybe a plane discharged its cargo or something like that. But if you get down to the few that are kind of odd, that's exactly how I think of it. This star
kind
jelly
of in the
incident.
same terms there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So other than that, I have nothing left.
It's really a fascinating story.
It is. And I like this kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love my conspiracies, and I love my my deep dives of things that just drive you insane to think about. Just the innumerable things that could be going on in the story. But I love these. I love cryptids.
Oh, yeah, I love cryptids.
Whether or not I actually ascribe to any one, belief in any one of these things, I don't care.
Here.
I just love stories.
Yeah, me too.
And some of these stories, decently straightforward ones are the ones I like. I love these. So I like doing the research for it, and I like where I am with it. But it was just fun to do.
Yeah, it's one of those neat little stories that you're just kind of like, it's mysterious. It's one of those, okay, what the heck is this? Could it be paranormal?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I would say probably not. But, you don't know. You don't know. So
I got to say, though, that if you're walking down any number of streets in your hometown, and I don't even want to give it a population limit here, but if you're in a city, if you're walking somewhere in Brooklyn, and you see if you see just a clump of goo, just please don't touch it.
Well, I think you can either take it away. I mean, either don't touch it, or if you're going to go for walks and you're going to be looking for this stuff, just carry a stick and a baby food jar. Be careful about it.
Don't let your dog eat it.
Don't let your dog eat it.
That could be bad news bears.
Don't feed it to your kids or your little brother or anything like that. We're not going to have any of that.
I don't know. All right, well, that about wraps up this episode of the Supernatural Tendencies Podcast, but we'd love to know what your opinion of this strange case is. So leave us a comment on the YouTube video that we post this at, or on our Facebook page at the Supernatural Tendencies Podcast. Again, let us know what you think. If you have any ideas or requests for future podcasts, let us know that too.
And if you're having paranormal activity or extraterrestrial contact and aren't sure where to turn for help, visit me at ChristyJohnsonSadler.com to learn the exact steps to gaining knowledge about your experiences and also what to do about them. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.